Hi, welcome back to this Tuesday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Just a heads up on the State of the Union speech tonight. I'm going to talk about the age of the earth here in just a second. But President Obama is going to announce tonight a retirement plan to allow first-time savers, those that don't have a pension plan through work, to buy U.S. Treasury bonds tax deferred for retirement, which will later then be converted into an IRA. Now, we've talked about this before, and I've warned you about this. This is what's coming. This is what's coming, ladies and gentlemen. The last untapped source of cash, reserves, assets left in America are the retirement resources and assets of Americans that are stored up in their 401ks and their IRAs. And I predict that the time is going to come when President Obama, it might even happen in the next 3 years, this is just the first step, he's just going to seize those retirement assets. He's going to seize them. He's going to take them. He's going to confiscate them. And he's going to issue us these treasury bills with the same face amount. And so, look, we'll just give you these treasury bills. We'll give you these IOUs from the U.S. government, and we're going to trade that. We're going to trade you for the actual assets that you have in your accounts, the money you've actually saved. We're going to take all that. We're going to use it to spend it on government programs, and we're going to give you this worthless IOU from the Department of Treasury. It is coming, so get ready for it. And when you hear that announced tonight, know where that's headed, know exactly where that's going. They are after our IRAs, ladies and gentlemen. They're after our 401ks. They're coming to get them. And if we don't stop them, they will wind up taking them. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about the age of the earth. And what triggered this for me is I'm reading a story this week, or yesterday, from the Daily Mail Online, one of the leading newspapers in the UK, about the declining power of the Earth's magnetic field. Now, this is sort of a catastrophic piece in the Daily Mail Online. It starts off by saying the Earth's magnetic field has weakened by 15% over the last 200 years, and they predict this could lead to the planet's north and south poles to flip. Solar winds could punch holes into the Earth's ozone layer. This could damage power grids, affect weather, and increase cancer rates. In other words, ending life on Earth as we know it. So this has got this catastrophic alarmist thing to it. But the thing that struck me is this observation that the magnetic field of the Earth is weakening. Now, I've been reading about this for years in scientific creationism, in literature that promotes scientific creationism, because it is the decay of the Earth's magnetic field is one of the clearest scientific indications. Now, notice we're going to talk here, all we're going to talk about is science for the next few minutes. We're not even going to talk about the Bible. We're not going to talk about Genesis 1. We are going to talk only about science. Hard science. So when somebody accuses us of being anti-science for believing in creationism, don't let them lie to you. That's absolutely not true. Our view is rooted in science, and our biblical view of origins is confirmed by the best in science. Now, here is an example. I'm looking at Henry Morris's book, Scientific Creationism, page 157. He's talking here in this segment about the evidence for a young earth. Now, if you look at Genesis 1, you have these complete genealogies in Genesis 5 and Genesis 10. Maybe you can wedge another person or two in there, but they're virtually complete, and you couldn't expand them with missing people enough to really make a difference. So you take those genealogies and you go back to the time of Adam, you get a time for the creation of Adam of a little past 4,000 BC. I think 4,224 BC is where I came out in my calculations, and that means the earth isn't going to be much older than that. I mean, there wouldn't be any reason for God to leave it laying around for millions and millions of years in that chaotic and unformed state. So you got to figure the earth is most likely less than 10,000 years old. Man is about 6,000 years old by now, about 6,300 years old, and the earth probably not much older than that. We don't know how long God left the universe in its chaotic and unformed state in Genesis 1:1. Remember, the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. We don't know how long that lasted before he started the creative week, but that's not likely to be a span of time that's going to cover thousands of years, and might have even been the condition on day one. That may, and then he began later in that same day to begin the creative work. Now, here's what Henry Morris says about the magnetic field of the Earth. And this article, by the way, says that deep within the Earth, a fierce molten core is generating a magnetic field capable of defending our planet against devastating solar winds. The protective field extends thousands of miles into space, and its magnetism affects everything from global communication to animal migration and weather patterns. But this magnetic field, so important to life on Earth, has weakened by 15% over the last 200 years. So that's where this Daily Mail piece basically starts and stops. But I've been reading about this decaying magnetic field for decades now in the scientific literature that deals with origins. Now, here's what Henry Morris says, and I'm going to read some excerpts out of the book. And one of the arguments for a young Earth, an Earth that's less than 10,000 years old, again, we're talking just science now. I reiterate, we're just talking science here. We're not talking theology. We're not talking Genesis 1. All we are talking about here is raw, pure, unadulterated science. The evidence is found in a remarkable study by Dr. Thomas G. Barnes, professor of physics at the University of Texas in El Paso. So this guy is a physicist. He teaches at the University of Texas in El Paso. He's the author of many papers in the fields of atmospheric physics and a widely used college textbook on electricity and magnetism. So this guy knows what he's talking about. He pointed out that the strength of the magnetic field has been measured carefully for 135 years and also has been shown through analytic and statistical studies that it has been decaying exponentially during that period with a most probable half-life of 1,400 years. So in other words, his point is we can measure the decay of the Earth's magnetic field. We can statistically measure that puppy, and they have come to the conclusion, these physicists and researchers, that its half-life is about 1,400 years. So that means 1,400 years ago, the Earth's magnetic field was twice as strong as it is today. If you go back 2,800 years, the Earth's magnetic field would have been 4 times stronger than it is today. If you go back 7,000 years, it would have been 32 times as strong as it is today. 10,000 years ago, the Earth would have been had a magnetic field as strong as that of a magnetic star, which would make life on Earth absolutely impossible. And then he goes into the processes. You know, magnetic stars have thermonuclear processes which establish and maintain magnetic fields. The Earth doesn't have that source. The only possible source must be free circulating electric currents in the Earth's iron core. Electric currents, however, must flow against resistance, and such resistance generates heat, which is then dissipated through the surrounding medium and lost. Such currents must gradually decay because of this heat loss, and this in turn accounts for the decay of the induced magnetic field. So you just look at the decay of the Earth's magnetic field, and the outside limit, based on raw science, the outside limit for the age of the Earth would have to be about 10,000 years. Now, there's a couple of other geochronometers that support this. One is ocean sediments. This is on page 155 of Henry Morris's book. Geologist Stuart Nevins has studied this, published his research on this subject. Approximately 27.5 billion tons of sediment are being transported to the ocean every year. So Mississippi River, all the stuff pouring into the oceans, dumps 27.5 billion tons of sediment in there every single solitary year. Now, they estimate that the total mass of sediments already in the ocean is about 820 million billion tons. So that's a whole lot of sediment on the sea floor. Dividing the total mass by the transport rate, in other words, if this had been going on all during Earth's history, 30 million years would be the maximum age of the ocean since sediments first began flowing into us. You couldn't go past 30 million years no matter what you did. And of course, Our suggestion would be with the worldwide flood and some of the cataclysmic effects on the Earth's surface, topographical impact of floodwaters and all that, you'd have this mass accelerated deposit of sediments under the ocean floor as the floodwaters dried up. Now, this Nevins guy has shown that the total mass, listen to this, the total mass of continental rocks above sea level is only about 383 million billion tons, which is just about less than half of the sediments that are already in the ocean. So as you take all the land mass on Earth, I mean from the beaches in Florida to Mount Everest, you got 383 million billion tons of continental rocks. Now, what that means at the current rate of sedimentary deposit that we already know, sedimentation, it would take 14 million years to erode the continents to sea level. In other words, the entire Earth would be absolutely flat. There would be no mountains, no hillocks, no berms, no nothing. The Earth would be flat. And that's if the Earth was as young as 14 million years old. So the Earth cannot possibly be billions and billions and billions of years old. Now, the last thing I want to mention to you, we've talked about the magnetic field of the Earth. We've talked about rate of sedimentation deposit in the oceans. Again, this is just pure science. Here's another one. There is a constant rate that scientists have been able to measure of cosmic dust particles that enter the Earth's atmosphere from space and gradually settle on the Earth's surface. They can measure this. The measurement's been made by a guy named Hans Pedersen, who published his research in Scientific American. I won't bore you with the details of how much is falling. But if the Earth is 5 billion years old, and if the moon is 5 billion years old, a layer of meteoric dust should have accumulated on the surface of the Earth and the surface of the moon 182 feet thick. In fact, NASA was worried about that when they sent the astronauts to the moon. They knew about this meteoric dust stuff and the rate of accumulation. They thought, man, maybe these guys will land on the surface of the moon and they will sink out of sight. And that's why they had those big pads on the lunar lander. Well, just barely centimeters of cosmic dust. Earth cannot be billions of years old.